For today's podcast, I want to talk about a rule that I love called the 555 rule and perspective. And the key with this rule is if you're having a problem with something that's happening in your life, the key question to ask yourself is, will this matter the same to me in 5 hours, 5 months, or 5 years? That's the 555 rule. And different people have different kind of ways of looking at it where they have different numbers or whatever. You get the idea. The focus with this is how you can zoom out. The focus is when you're in pain, when you're undergoing stress, anxiety, when something bad is happening in the moment, how can you try to get out of what's called the amygdala hijack, all right, where you're just in the emotion center and your mind is racing and all it's thinking about is bad things. How can you possibly break the cycle? And you break it by going to your prefrontal cortex, all right, to your logic center, to your thinking center. You need to get out of your emotions and into your thoughts and thinking positively, not thinking negatively. All right, because that amygdala hijack is all the negative thoughts, all right, based off of negative emotions. So to try to find positive emotions, we need to go to our observing mind, not our monkey mind, all right, which is based on the book Addicted to the Monkey Mind. Great book. If you ever want to read like one of the best books I've ever read, read this book, Addicted to the Monkey Mind. The idea is when we're under stress, right? When we have anxiety, when we have pain, when we have grief, what happens is that we get hyper-focused on the moment, all right? What happens is that we don't see how we're going to be able to move past this moment. And we think that this moment is our lives. And the 555 rule helps us to back out of that. All right, helps us to zoom out, and you do it in stages. You say, okay, in 5 hours, am I going to be as unhappy, mad, sad, whatever, as I am right now? And oftentimes, no. Then the key is, okay, in 5 months, if what's happening right now, in 5 months, will I still be this upset? Will I still be this sad? Will I still be this anxious? And usually, no, you won't be. And then what's really important is to take the perspective of, will I be this sad, mad, unhappy in 5 years? And most of the time, in almost everything, in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, we have moved on. This idea that time heals is powerful and true. And I'll tell you that I've had really big things happen in my life. My parents died much earlier than, I expected or than they should have. And I had the surreal experience of being there when each of my parents took their last breath. And that's astounding. It's incredible to be there with the person when they leave this world and they go to the next. And there's sadness, there's grief, there's all of this, darkness in that moment. And that's okay, by the way. We need to make sure that we go through the hard times to be able to get to the light. We have to go through the darkness to get to the light. But what's key is that we need to make sure that we have the tools, all right? That you and I have the tools to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel, all right? Because sometimes the tunnel seems really long, all right? Sometimes the tunnel is dark and it's got curves in it and you can't see where the light is going to be. And the key is to just keep moving forward. The key is, with this idea of this rule, the 555 rule, to know I just need to make sure to get through this hour, to get through this day, to get through this week, this month, this year. Because with time, I know that I will heal. All right. With time, I know that this bad thing that happened isn't going to seem as bad. And what's important, I'm always a huge advocate of the fact that we have to make sure that we learn and grow. You'll hear me talk about it all the time in my podcasts. Are we learning? Are we growing? Are we using the difficult times in our lives to become better? And if we can use a rule like the 555 rule to help us to have the perspective that this won't last forever, we can then learn from it more easily. We can then grow from it more easily. Let's say that, you're at work and you get a bad work review, for the last quarter, the last, 6 months or whatever. Initially, everyone gets hurt by that. I mean, that's hard. If someone tells you, your boss tells you that they're not happy with you, that hurts your ego. All right. And our sense of self gets damaged, gets hurt, gets threatened. And the key is we have to make sure to remember, hey, in 5 hours, hopefully my observing mind will be talking a little bit more and will be able to take over some of the monkey mind. All right. Hopefully, I will not be as triggered in that moment because of just when it happens. And I'll be able to see, all right, that, okay, my boss thinks I did some not great work, A, B, C, D, whatever. All right. But I'm still a good worker. He didn't fire me. She didn't say that, I'm on probation or anything. I just didn't get a good review. And the more that I can try to gain perspective, the more that you and I can remember 5 hours later, okay, that wasn't fun. I did not enjoy that at all, but I'm still good. Realistically, I just need to do better, which is the observing mind, right? Our monkey mind will tend to chatter at us and chatter at us and chatter at us and tell us we're not good enough, right? That we're less than. Right? That we deserved it because of A, B, and C. And oh my God, if my home life was better, I would be able to do better at work and all this stuff. But the key is to eventually get to the observing mind to say, you know what? I've had a lot of stuff going on at home, and I think that has affected my quality of work. And I need to figure out how to do better at separating my home life and my work life. In 5 months. Hopefully that feedback has helped you to learn, right? To really become better at what your boss needs from you and what your work needs from you. And assuming, of course, that they're not being too demanding, and assuming, of course, that you don't have a horrible work environment, right? So those things, assuming that, hopefully in 5 months, you have become a better employee. Hopefully your observing mind has really helped you to see how you can use that feedback. Because remember, we can use feedback to get better or to get bitter. All right. We can use the hardships in our lives, right? The things that hurt us to get better or just become bitter. And bitterness doesn't help anyone. Right? The key is learning and growing. The key is learning and growing. And throughout life, how do we make sure that we are becoming, that we are evolving as a person, that we are constantly trying to become better? And realistically, in 5 years, what's great is that negative review you got one time, is something where either you decided, I don't like this company and I'm going to leave this company, or I can see there was truth in that. If there was truth in that feedback and you become better because of it, then that's just part of the path. What I love is that the positives and negatives in life are all part of the path. All right. And this is the idea of amore fati. Amore fati is the love of fate. It's a Stoic, virtue belief, and it comes from Friedrich Nietzsche. But it says that I will make sure to try to see everything that happens in my life as good. right? Because you can learn from everything in your life. So the 555 rule is all about perspective. The 555 rule is all about zooming out. It's about, can I not get stuck in this moment? Can I make sure to stop being triggered, all right, by something negative that I was told about myself, all right, by something negative that happened to me? Again, there are some big bad things that happen in life. I've had them. And the key is we need to make sure to fight the negativity. We need to make sure that we fight the darkness. We need to make sure that we are always working to zoom out and have the perspective that our path is a good path. And a good path does not mean an easy path, right? A good path has bumps in it. A good path has sharp left turns in it. I've had some in my life, all right? A good path is one where we recognize that along with the hard times, the hard moments, there are so many good moments. That we remember to give ourselves grace. We use and we need the 555 rule in the hard times. And in the hard times, we need to make sure to give ourselves grace and other people grace. Because we aren't perfect. Other people are not perfect. The key is, are we always trying to become better? Are we always learning and growing? Do we remember, do we have the perspective that our path is a good path? And that doesn't mean an easy path. If we can use rules like the 555 rule, if we can make sure to use it with ourselves and others, we can help ourselves, we can help others to have the perspective that let's give it time, all right? And in time, things will be okay. And time does heal. That is a fairly universal in life. And if we can all remember that we are blessed, if we can all remember how lucky we are, then in the hard times, we know that they are just bumps in the road. All right. In the hard times, we remember that, yeah, you know what? I was never promised fair. I was never promised easy. But my life is so good. And the more that we can remember that perspective, the more that we can be grateful for our lives, that will help us to get through the tough times. And remember, having the tools like 555 helps you if you learn them when you're not in pain. When you are in pain, it helps you to get through it. So make sure that you develop these tools. Make sure that you learn these things. If you ever want to do any coaching with me, I do one-on-one coaching. I do group coaching. I have a 6-session leadership program that's amazing. I'll be happy to help you with any of that stuff. Just make sure to go to our website and take a look at the offers. Thanks and take care.